These are the western highlands of Guatemala. It's a place with green, lush mountains and fertile soil. It's an area deep in traditions where Mayan culture has flourished for centuries. It's also the place with the highest migration rates from Guatemala to the United States.
Todos nosotros aquí, todos piensan que vayan a los Estados Unidos a cumplir sus sueños, a hacer sus trabajos. Aquí sí, siempre todos tienen el sueño así de viajar en Estados Unidos.
Immigration from Guatemala to the United States has exploded in the last 15 years. In 2019, more than 54,000 Guatemalans were deported from the U.S. That was the second highest total of any country. Many arrived in large caravans at the Mexico-U.S. border. Former President Donald Trump denounced them as criminals.
Some people call it an invasion. It's like an invasion.
The 2,000-mile trek from Guatemala to the U.S. is dangerous and sometimes violent. So why do so many people risk it? This past summer, a team from Roots of Peace, a humanitarian organization based in San Rafael, went to Guatemala looking for answers.
We traveled to the Western Highlands and really did the assessments out there to find out that 45% of the out-migration comes from this area. The root cause of the migration to the U.S. borders is that there are no jobs for young people. They make very little pay, and the agricultural crops have not been properly cultivated.
One of the areas they visited was Todos Santos, Cuchumatang, a community of villages about 8,000 feet above sea level. It's a place where the inhabitants still wear traditional Mayan outfits and speak Mam, one of the 22 Mayan dialects spoken in Guatemala. Wilmer Ramirez Jimenez is part of this community. He's 20 years old and thinks of leaving.
Es por la pobreza. Uno quiere tener sus propias casas. Aunque es difícil de llegar uno a Estados Unidos, pero unas lucha, ¿por qué? Para cumplir sus sueños.
Wilmer is among the 52 families that cultivate honey in this area. Even though they have about 1,000 beehives, their earnings are meager. Despite their hard work, half the population of Guatemala lives in poverty.
Aquí se ganan 50 quetzales, en cambio allá hasta $100 se gana. Entonces al envío del dólar de allá, entonces se rinde un poco más y por eso la gente de aquí, Todos Santos, se arriesgan la vida para cruzar la frontera, para mantener a la familia aquí.
Roots of Peace founder Heidi Kuhn met with the farmers to look for ways to increase their earnings.
We find a way to bring your product to market, sell it, and come back and grow more.
It's a model Roots of Peace has used in other countries. The organization was founded in 1997 by Kuhn and her husband Gary. They raised money here in Northern California's wine country so that they could help remove landmines and transform fields into vineyards around the world. They started in Croatia, and in 2002, Roots of Peace went into Afghanistan to do similar work after the war.
After we removed the mines, Roots of Peace realized that that was only half the problem. We needed to train the farmers how to grow the high-value crops and the grapes. And it was really a way to heal the wounds of war, heal the earth, and became really a business model for peace.
It's an approach they are trying in Guatemala, where 60% of the population is under the age of 30. They are young and eager to work, but have few economic opportunities.
Every year, 150,000 Guatemalans enter the workforce, and they compete for only 35,000 jobs. And so it's not surprising that surveys that we've conducted have demonstrated that over 80% of Guatemalans migrate for economic reasons.
Maria Elida Perez y Perez was one of those who migrated to the U.S., but eventually went back to Guatemala.
Yo me fui para allá porque no teníamos nada económico aquí, no teníamos ni dinero, no teníamos ningún futuro que construir.
Maria Elida was 19 years old when she made the trek alone. She crossed the Rio Grande and walked through the desert. She returned after 8 years, bought some land with her savings, and is now cultivating coffee. She asked Roots of Peace for help to grow her business.
A que nos ayuden nos pueden comprar el café para que nosotros podamos exportar para allá, para que nosotros no lo dejemos a que se desperdicie aquí porque no tenemos exportación.
Coffee farmers in this area bring their beans to this processing center to get it tasted and graded.
Ryan, want to try this?
Wow, that's amazing coffee. I myself, having tasted some of the most delicious coffee, it was such a rudimentary facility, and if they could have the proper investment to make that a professional facility, then they could really accelerate the investment there and multiply those coffee fields. So there's so much potential. I just came away from Guatemala just so amazed and impressed, and just to see the entrepreneurial spirit of the people there, the families.
The Kuhn's mission continues with the next generation. Heidi Kuhn's son, Tucker, moved to Guatemala 3 years ago. He created an action plan to reduce poverty in the region, with the ultimate goal to diminish migration out of the country.
This is the Roots of Peace model. We've used it in Afghanistan and Vietnam, and we've proven to transform their incomes from going from low-value crops to high-value crops, connecting them into the supply chains that get their crops in high-paying markets, and making the traders incentivized to pay better prices to get the better quality. These are systems we've developed, and it's shown impact.
But it's going to take more than just spirit to lift the Western Highlands out of poverty. Roots of Peace is seeking $50 million in funding from U.S. aid to implement its program in the region. The 5-year plan would benefit 100,000 farmers and workers.
The people who are leaving, they're not the people who have the steady jobs. You know, the majority of them are the young men who are stuck with no opportunities. They're basically forced to go north. This will create jobs for the farmers, and it'll create jobs within their communities as we develop these supply chains.
For those still looking to emigrate for work, the program would facilitate the use of H-2A agricultural worker visas. In 2020, nearly 200,000 Mexican immigrants used it to work legally in the U.S. for short periods of time. Just 2,000 Guatemalans were part of that program. That same year, nearly 30,000 Guatemalans were deported from the U.S. In June, Vice President Kamala Harris visited the country and spoke directly to would-be migrants.
Do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border.
Harris developed the White House strategy on immigration. The first step was handing out $310 million in humanitarian aid. The White House wants another $4 billion to address the root causes of migration. It also promised to investigate corruption in the region.
The root cause is very complicated. We have a lot of things going on in Guatemala, but the main thing would be corruption. Corruption will let the economy develop.
Eli Orozco lived 16 years as an immigrant in the U.S. before returning to Guatemala. He's a tour guide now and regularly sees migrants at the main bus terminal in Antigua to begin their journey north.
They have to go begging for money to take the bus to the border, and they don't even have food for that. So they have to ask people to provide food, and that's within their country. Imagine how more difficult it is when they get to Mexico and they have to go across for multiple days to Mexico, and then they have to risk their lives to cross the Rio Grande and then the deserts in the USA. So they are risking their lives, but they see no other choice. It's more difficult over here to remain here, and there is no hope, there is no alternatives for them, and they also have dreams.
It's a devil's bargain. It can cost up to $10,000 to hire someone to guide them to the United States.
Profundizan la pobreza porque en muchos casos tienen que vender lo único que puedan tener, que es un pedazo de tierra para poder pagar al coyote o a la persona que les ayuda a pasar.
If they are caught entering illegally and get deported, they lose their money and return to Guatemala in deeper poverty. But the payoff can be big. In 2019, Guatemalans living in the U.S. sent back about $10 billion to their families, bigger than the gross domestic product of Guatemala's entire agriculture industry. It's that money that pays for homes like these.
You go around in these communities, you see some nice houses. In these communities, 9 times out of 10, that's someone who immigrated to the US that get remittances. It's this big giant billboard saying, immigrate to the US, you could find your fortune there. It really is like a gold rush for them.
We call it remittances architecture. People work very hard in the USA and they save money and they send it to their families so they can build these beautiful houses. And in some of them, as a sign of gratitude, we'll see the American flag on the corners of some of the houses.
USAID is offering its own message. The agency began producing these videos urging Guatemalans to stay home. They tout the beauty of Western Highland towns and what is being done to generate jobs. Despite these efforts, it seems everyone has a story about emigrating to the United States. Roberto Castañón Bautista was 22 when he made the dangerous trek.
Nos fuimos solos en el desierto, había mucho riesgo, muchas serpientes, habían muchas personas muertas en el desierto.
He found work, saved his money, and returned home to buy a small farm. Now he runs ACAS, a center that teaches farmers how to produce better coffee.
Mi anhelo es crear empleos aquí, cultivar más café para evitar que muchas personas se arriesguen para allá.
Many Guatemalan agencies are working on the same goal, like the Barbara Ford Peace Center. It teaches entrepreneurial skills, including beekeeping, in the Western Highlands.
Muchos jóvenes poseen tierras, pero que no saben cómo utilizarlas. Hay áreas forestales como esta donde bien funcionan las abejas y algunos tienen áreas planas que son buenas para la agricultura.
The center is located in the Western Highlands where tens of thousands of Mayans were tortured and killed during the Civil War. Now, it's an area of renewal.
Guatemala was a war-torn country, and people suffered from the war, the aftermath of war, and it devastates an economy. And the knowledge on how to work their land is lost. But when they are taught the modern agricultural techniques and they have hope in the future, the potential and the vibrancy, the excitement, you see the whole community being lifted up. And the young people see that, and I don't think they would have the propensity to leave their wonderful communities looking for jobs and being refugees in another country.
Family ties in the highlands are very, very strong. Nobody wants to leave. They only do it because there is no economic opportunities over here. They only want simple things. They want a small plot where they can build a beautiful house for the family. They only want farmland where they can cultivate their coffee or their corn. With some basic investment, we can provide those things here. You can get it done.